Now, the United Nations Children's Fund has vowed to sustain its support for the Nigerian government and communities in the Northeast region, despite facing significant funding hitches following the recent cessation of US aid funding, Now, speaking in Maiduguri during a week-long assessment visit to Borno State, UNICEF's Regional Director for West and Central Africa, Gilles Fagninou, says the organization is dedicated to maintaining its support levels to victims of the Boko Haram conflict, especially women and children. Now, addressing the uncertainty of funding, the director assured that UNICEF will strive to secure the minimum resources necessary to address urgent needs. According to him, the organization is engaged in ongoing discussions with the government to bridge funding gaps, including through increased domestic resource mobilization. Well, we're delighted to let you know that we're being joined in the studio by UNICEF's Regional Director for West and Central Africa, Gilles Fagninou. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Good morning.
So can you tell us a bit about your time in Nigeria, why you're visiting? I mean, I believe you oversee 24 countries.
Yes.
And why Nigeria? What's happening at the moment?
I mean, in West and Central Africa, 37% of children call Nigeria home. So for me as regional director, it was important to be here and to discuss with the team and local authorities and federal authorities to try to see what and how we are supporting children, especially in the northeast of the country, and how we can do better. Step up our response and be able to respond to the children's needs.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, I believe that I read recently that about 1 in 5 of children under the age of 5 is malnourished in certain areas of the country. I think Zamfara was one of the areas that was highlighted. But with everything that's going on right now with the USAID funding cuts, how is it affecting your outputs, your programs, and what exactly does UNICEF do in northern Nigeria to tackle child malnutrition, to tackle out-of-school children?
Yes, during my visit, I was in a stabilization center in Maiduguri, and I can see that we still have a number of children malnourished in that location. I was also in a school, and you know the out-of-school children situation is extremely difficult. I was in Hajj camp. And in that camp, you can see that the turnover is still high, and we still have...
Sir, what is Hajj camp?
Hajj camp is a transit camp in administrative custody for those who are alleged, you know, in relation with armed groups. So it's a transit camp during, I mean, from the old situation, they moved to the community, but they need to transit through a camp. So we still have a bit more than 6,500 children, women, and adults in that camp. So the situation is still concerning, and UNICEF is doing whatever we can with life-saving activities in health, in nutrition, in education, to be able to give back hope to those children. The situation is still concerning, and as you mentioned, you know, from our donors, we are facing a funding cut that includes US, but we still have some resources, and our intention is to keep to even step up our response to be able to respond to those humanitarian needs in the northeast of Nigeria.
Okay, well, thank you for mentioning that, because I was going to ask specifically about this Hajj camp in Maiduguri, because I think I heard a report about how, because of USAID funding, there were some cuts, but you seem to have just corrected that misconception concerning, you're saying you're actually stepping things up instead of scaling down. Can you just give a little more clarity on that?
I mean, by nature, our funding, the funding of United Nations in general, and that includes UNICEF, is uncertain. I mean, we discuss with donors, they help us to be able to respond to the children's needs. What is happening now is not new. What is new is that it is a bit brutal, and the situation is just very sudden. But at the end of the day, we keep our operation. We are readjusting few things, but we will be able to continue operating in the Northeast, in Nigeria in general, but also in the region. What we are asking for is to discuss with our government, and we are seeing a number of governments, including Nigeria government, stepping up with more domestic resources to support their children, because the priorities are there, and the primary responsibility of government is to respond to those needs. UNICEF is by their side, and we still have resources to be able to respond to those needs with life-saving activities, both in nutrition, in education, but also in protection in general. Private sector is there. We are revamping our fundraising strategy for us not only to focus on government resources, but also private sector resources, also other donors who are stepping up to support us in our operation, because the international solidarity is still there. And private sector is yesterday, but also today, recognized very clearly the social corporate responsibility they have, so that we all together, we make sure that we don't leave any child behind.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, just one more last question, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'll just after.
If you had, so no, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to ask particularly about vaccines, because I believe some of the work you do is polio vaccination and trying to eradicate, polio, particularly in northern Nigeria. I wanted to ask if you have had to deal with mistrust or the program, if there's trust around the program, because there's been a lot of talk in Nigeria media and Nigerian society about whether or not people trust NGOs and people trust foreign aid organizations, but also on social media after COVID-19, there's a lot of distrust for vaccines. So how successful are your vaccination programs taking all these things into consideration?
Vaccination is key because, as you know, child mortality is very high in our countries. More and more population understand very clearly that the diseases that we can avoid with vaccination, we need to avoid them. So in Nigeria, I mean, there have been a lot of progress. Recently, we vaccinated 2.6 million children with polio vaccine, actually. And it's going into the right direction, and I'm very, very hopeful that that misconception, we are pushing it back slowly. And the same disinformation that we have on social media, the same social media is also helping us to bring back the hope, to bring back the understanding that this is something that needs to be done. And child survival is something that authorities, but also communities, they care about. And in fact, we will be having a very high-level meeting tomorrow, Thursday, and on Friday to bring back discussions again around polio and to try to see how we go about the last miles, because we are about to end polio in Nigeria, but also around the world. And we are very hopeful that, together we are making the effort that is needed to be on track to end polio very shortly.
Well, we look forward to hearing more about what happens in these high-level meetings, especially the one you're having tomorrow. But I'd also like to ask, on a lighter note, if you can give us maybe a few pointers about what has been going on so far with the courtesy visits that you've been paying. I know yesterday you were with the Minister of Women Affairs, as well as for humanitarian issues. Can you give us a bit of insight on that? Can you maybe explain what your courtesy visits were centered around?
Yes, the courtesy visit, after Maiduguri, of course, I visited several ministers, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Reduction of Poverty, the Minister of Women, the Minister of Budget and Planning, and the discussion was around the situation of children in this country. We have had a number of evaluations that are showing very clearly that most of our initiatives are giving good results, and it is time to scale up. And to be able to scale up, we need to discuss with authorities and to see the modality of the scale up. And you know, scale up means a large amount of resources, and that call for government to take responsibility. And that's what the discussion was about. And I'm very hopeful that Nigeria is in the right direction. We have some years that are very attentive to the issue of children, and they know clearly that the future of this country needs to be better. And for this to be better, investment in children needs to be made. And that came out very strongly. I also pay a courtesy visit to the president of ECOWAS, and we talk about the role of ECOWAS in bringing together this region around the children issues, and I think it's going well. I'm very hopeful.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And before we go on a short break, I have to say your outfit is amazing. Your outfit is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.